Hey guys, it's Gus, and the new dungeon, the Master Lair of the Mad Dragon, is no joke. A lot of groups are failing that dungeon, especially at the last boss. So they patched it, and ever since they patched it and made the last boss more difficult, a lot of groups have been having trouble getting past that last 20% where the DPS check is. And I've been very fortunate. A lot of groups have been inviting me to fill that last DPS spot so they can complete. And the overwhelming majority of the time we've gotten through. I think I've had four groups that I've joined that I wasn't able to help them get past it. But over those runs, I'm gonna say 50 plus last boss invites. I've noticed a number of common traits with those failed runs, and I put them together in a small list in no particular order, just to show you what I've seen. When you join the last boss invites, you can see who left, and what gears they were wearing. And then you can look at the group and see what gears they're wearing. And these are some of the things I've noticed that are common throughout failed runs. And maybe this will help you out a little bit get through. So the first thing is, it's very common to see in failed runs one or more DPS wearing these Delzoon armors. These are extremely bad armors to wear. Actually, the majority of them will lower your damage. So they're doing the opposite of helping you. They're actually hurting you. So I would recommend never wearing a single one of these gears. You can advance. Advance is easy. And Master is much more challenging though, unless everybody's on point. It's possible for everybody to wear these armors. Yeah, that last boss is possible with three players. But that's not most teams. That's not the teams inviting me to the last boss. And what's common is there will be one or more DPS wearing these Delzoon armors, which are extremely bad. And I've just noticed that these are a common gear worn in failed runs. They're not gears commonly worn by successful runs. You notice how I put that? I'm not saying they're bad and you can't wear them. I'm saying if you want to complete, they're probably not going to help you. Oh, this is a very common feature. Number two, these magma weapons. I can't think of any worse weapons to wear than these weapons in there. These are okay in all the other content in the game, but once you start getting to master content, you have to do your role effectively. And damage dealers are getting nothing out of these weapons. Yeah, they are kind of high item level. They do give some base damage, right? But the only thing these are really giving you is 5% combat advantage. And generally speaking, combat advantage is not something players are hurting for now, especially with the Flapjack, Tutor, and Portobello companions giving us even more combat advantage. Combat advantage is usually not a stat DPS are short on. So effectively, these weapons are pretty much useless. I do know the more helpful weapons are a pain in the ass to get, like the ones from Moon Dancer, because not a lot of groups are running Moon Dancer. I would recommend just wearing Mastercraft weapons if you don't have anything better than these Magma weapons. And these are 200,000 AD for stepping stone weapons. I would not recommend spending any uh, any AD on weapons that won't help you in master content. Because for like advanced and scaled dungeons, you can literally wear the weapons they give you when you start the game. These don't really help you out at all. I know some people say, well, I'm not wearing a raptor. Well, if your build's good enough where you don't need a raptor, these weapons aren't going to help you. But you do you. I'm just saying, in failed runs, those 50 plus failed runs, these are a common thing you see in failed runs. They're not weapons you see in successful runs. So basically, I'm not gonna say any rings from the new zone, but if you're wearing these ashen rings, they're so bad. There's one that looks really sexy, probably the sexiest looking ring in the entire game of Neverwinter. These give you every time you kill an enemy, you're getting 1300 of a stat times one, two, three. So four times 1300, right? Four times 1300 times 10. These rings have the potential to give you 52,000 ratings. The problem is on the second boss, you need those stats to kill the summoner, and you're not killing anything before the summoner. And on the last boss, you're not killing anything. So this ring, even though it looks like it has the potential to be sexy, it's not doing anything for you. And I would say if you don't any rings at all out of the new zone, uh, I guess you could say a case for some of these rings, like the 5% combat advantage ring. After 50 seconds, you'll get 5% CA. But most players aren't looking for combat advantage, in master content. Their builds are at the level where the CA, if they shuffle everything around, still aren't going to help out too much. And then there's the 2% damage ring, which is, I mean, these two rings aren't that bad. They're not as bad as like when you see Delzun armor or Magma weapons. Usually it's just a sign that they haven't completed previous master content, which is fine. You don't need to do this dungeon. So these rings aren't that bad. The only reason I'm showing them is I would say any rings from this new zone, but these two, there's a case to be said they're pretty good. They're not bad. So I'm not completely shitting on everything, right, with this new zone. But if you're looking for rings, right, there's some really, really, really good rings you can buy if you don't want to do previous content and jump in this new dungeon, you can just get the really good rings that are unbound in the auction house, and there's a few of them. So let me go, not collections, professions. So there's the scintillant ring, scintillant. So there's the Scintillant Assault Ring. This one's really good. Look at this. This gives you 6% crit strike depending on your health. And in most master content, you're either dead or you're at max health. And these rings are giving you 6% crit strike. And there's another really good ring too. I have it written. Oh, the Feywood Raid Ring. Feywood Raid Ring. These ones are really good too. Look at this. These give you 7.5% crit severity. That's a shitload of stats from these two rings. These rings have the potential to give you 13.5% stats, not ratings. Uh, so if you don't have, viable rings, and you don't want to run the previous content, or if you do want to run it and can't get in the previous content, which is actually quite common right now, uh, you can get these rings from the auction house. So there's always an option instead of wearing really shitty rings to wear rings that will help out your build. Number four. So if you look at these four artifacts, tell me if you see anything wrong with these four artifacts. I know, here comes the comments, but I'm going to show you something. This is so common. So right now, I have the Wand of Domination slotted as my primary artifact. And that gives 7.5% outgoing damage for the group. In my secondary, I have the Zealous Blast Scepter that puts a 15% debuff on the enemy. This Zealous Blast Scepter is literally twice as good as the Wand of Domination. There is no way anybody should ever be wearing the Wand of Domination in 5-man content in any scenario. But if they are, they always seem to have a better artifact down here. And I'm like, why are you not? Why are you being? Why does anybody have to tell you this? They've been in there for hours many times when I join these runs. And this is a controllable thing. It's really hard to control other people's playstyle and gameplay, but it's really easy to control what we're equipped, right? Because you just take it off, and put it back on. And where is it? There. Where was that wand? Even though I don't use the wand, I just use it because it's commonly seen. Look, I just gave the group 7.5% more outgoing damage during the artifact call, where most DPS are doing over 10,000 magnitude damage each. Right? That 7.5% is a shitload. That's an extra artifact worth of damage we just got by making that one small adjustment. But sure as heck, when you go in these runs that have been there for 4+ hours, that's something you will commonly see. Um, Number five, it's very common to see multiple of the same debuff companions. Two tutors or 2 Dritzes, or 2 Black Death Scorpions, or 2 Flapjacks, 3 Flapjacks, right? All those are pretty much wasted because you're not going to get the same effect twice. None of those companion bonuses really stack. So I get it. If that's your only companion is Flapjack, use it. You know, but the chances of having 2 players in master content where both players only possess one single companion seems pretty far-fetched. It's possible, but the number of times I have seen this happen in groups that have been there for 4+ hours is just mind-boggling. I'd recommend you take a second and sort the team before you activate that door and waste a shitload of scrolls. Okay, I made a video on artifacts a while ago, and exactly what I said has been happening. This Crystal Soulflight is a really, really good artifact. The problem is literally every single run I've been in, except one, this artifact was on the wrong player. If you're, after you guys are in there, you'll know how much damage you're doing compared to everybody else. The DPS just need to look at the threat bar. If your threat bar is green and the other 2 DPS are yellow or orange, that means they're doing more damage than you. And if you're on this artifact and your threat bar is green while everybody else is yellow or orange, you're wrong. Because you're going to see a lot of groups fail at 1%, half of 1%, a tenth of 1%. And you have to maximize those artifact calls. And this artifact has the potential to really help the group out. And it's not if it's on the wrong player. You guys got to figure that out. And I'm not saying I'm being invited to those groups. So I'm not saying, hey, since you're not doing any damage, maybe I should wear that. And because that could seem like kind of like a dickhead thing to say. So I'm not going to say it. But I know it, and most groups that are completing know it. It's very obvious, especially after the first try. So groups that are using this almost undoubtedly will almost always be on the wrong player. Oh, this one's big. This one's pretty absurd, actually. So, if you didn't know, this Locket of Caldera, Belt of Caldera neck belt set isn't bad. It's horrible. It does almost nothing for your build whatsoever except give you item level. And if you're having the item level without the stats, it's really not doing anything for you. So look what this set does. This one gives you con, and this one gives you 3 strength, 3 charisma, which I guess charisma and strength isn't bad. But what really makes it bad is the set bonus. If you're a tank, you get 15% more threat. If you're not a tank, you get 15% less threat. If the tank needs it for threat, I don't mind whatsoever. The tank can wear an augment companion if they need the stats. As long as they're tanking it, nobody cares what the tank's doing. But if a DPS is wearing this, they're pretty wrong. They're actually hurting the group and not helping the group because there's so many different sets that could be worn that would be contributing to actual damage, while this set is pretty much lowering your damage. What makes it even funnier is when the healer is wearing it, right? It's doing absolutely nothing for the group whatsoever. So this belt and Locket of Caldera, if you're in master content and the group's failing and you're wearing it, they could probably start pointing fingers. I'm just saying, don't be that guy. And the other one, number 8, is this Magma set. This set is unbelievably bad. And the reason why it's so unbelievably bad is because there's so many sets that are unbelievably better. The Masterwork set, the really easy set to get from Advanced Moon Dancer. The demo set. Anything's basically better in this game. The Dragon Hunt, the neck and belt from Dragon Hunts. These Magma neck and belt are so bad. What do they give you? They give you 2% power, which basically nobody needs whatsoever. 2% forte, which is okay, and the defense, which really does absolutely nothing for you. So when you see a DPS wearing this Magma set, or the Caldera set as their neck and belt. It's usually a good indicator of why the group's failing the last boss. Because their builds aren't serious. They're not. This dungeon is very hard. That DPS check is no joke. And when you're failing, it's because the DPS aren't doing enough damage generally. It's not the healer's fault. It could be the tank's fault if they can't, but generally you'll know if it's the tank's fault within like 2 minutes, right? If they die or lose aggro 3 or 4 different times, they might be the first time in there. They might need some practice, but generally it's the DPS. It's the DPS's fault for failing this last boss almost every single time. Shit, the tank can keep dying as long as they get the aggro back momentarily afterwards. It's okay. They can die 6 times and they're still be in the fight. Oh, so here's number 9. Here's the number one reason why groups have been failing this dungeon. Number one reason. This is every one of my experiences. For some reason, you can be 95,000 item level, because that's the item level required to get in this dungeon, and still not know how to use an artifact. So if you don't know how to use an artifact, you probably need to figure out how to use it before going in that dungeon. Because when you got 3 DPS doing 10,000 plus magnitude each, that's 30,000 magnitude, in a 10-second period, plus all the other damage. And that's only if they're doing 10,000. Most classes are doing more. That's 30,000 magnitude worth of damage not getting your buffs. That's a shitload of damage being wasted. And that's number one reason why they're usually failing. You can go in there with a really bad team. I mean, not bad, but, under geared team. And they're still going to beat it if they're all doing their artifacts. Uh, I don't know what it is. This has been a common problem for such a long time in Neverwinter. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if they should add a tutorial that teaches players how to use artifacts. I don't understand how 4 players can use their artifacts and somebody not. I get it. You miss one time or you think you cast it and it didn't cast because of the lag or whatever. But over and over and over and over again, there's something wrong. The artifacts is the number one reason why I think groups have been failing the last boss. So I probably missed some things. So if you got any other reasons why you've been in groups that have been failing, please comment below because there's a lot of groups hurting there. So they probably really like to see your experience and what they can do to improve. That's all I got. Stay classy, Neverwinter. See you soon.